Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending AI and Muslim Piety on TikTok, a lecture by Dr. Christoph Günther. My name is Dr. Aliyah Khan. I'm an associate professor of English and Afro-American and African Studies at the University of Michigan. I'm also the director of the Michigan Global Islamic Studies Center, which is your host today, along with the Department of History of Art. I will be the moderator for today's talk. As I'm sure you know, due to inclement weather, heavy snow in Michigan, today's talk has been moved entirely online from hybrid. So thanks again for tuning in. I'll begin by introducing the Global Islamic Studies Center, then acquaint you with the event and with our speaker, and then I'll turn the floor over to him. The University of Michigan Global Islamic Studies Center aims to promote the understanding of global Islamic culture and Muslim societies worldwide, not just the Middle East, but also Asia, Africa, the Americas, and Europe. We're an academic unit at the University of Michigan, but we're also a community member in Southeast Michigan. If you're a student, faculty member, staff, or community member interested in our events, please join our newsletter and keep up with us on social media. We send out monthly newsletters, so make sure you subscribe. If you're a Michigan student wanting to get involved with our center, please attend our events. In addition, if you're an undergraduate student, declare our Islamic Studies minor. The minor has no prerequisites and it's 16 credits. You can find out more on our website, but please reach out and contact us by email if you have questions. If you're interested in graduate programs in Islamic studies, check out our master's degree in international and regional studies with an Islamic studies specialization. Again, you can find more info on our website. If you are a U of M student or faculty member looking for funding for a project or event, our applications are open to all U of M undergraduate students, graduate students, and faculty who are looking for funding for projects related to Islam and Muslim societies and communities, including in the United States. We fund events and any projects related to Islamic studies and Muslim societies on a rolling basis. This includes things like travel, conference fees, language learning courses, internships, and more. If you're doing graduate work on Black Islam or Black Muslim communities in the US, Africa, and around the world, do apply for our annual Black Islam Graduate Student Fellowship. We have several exciting events coming up this semester after this one. On February 25th at 6 p.m., we have our ongoing Kahwa and Authors Community Book Series, this time with poetry, art, and visual analysis from 4 Muslim and Arab American authors. That will be at 27th Letter Books, a bookstore in Detroit. We have 2 film festivals this term. The first, Palestine on Screen, features 4 Palestinian films and takes place over March and April in person at the Michigan and State Theaters in Ann Arbor. Our second annual African Muslim Film Festival will be online in March during Ramadan on the streaming platform Eventive. On April 16th at Cups and Chai Cafe in Ann Arbor, we will be launching the University of Michigan Professor Yasmin Moll's new book, The Revolution Within: Islamic Media and the Struggle for a New Egypt, on the new preachers of Egypt, Islamic television channels, the Arab Spring uprisings, and Islamic piety in Egypt. Professor Moll will be in conversation with Professor Andrew Shryock. So please stay tuned to our website and our newsletter for more information on these events. I will now introduce today's event and our guest speaker, Dr. Christoph Günther. Today's talk is the second event in our ongoing Islamic Studies Muslims in the Digital Age series. Our first event was Muslims in the Digital Age, podcasting, music, and illustration with Misha Yusuf, Imin Ahmed, and the musical duo Ain't Afraid. You can watch a recording of that event on our GISC YouTube channel. Dr. Christoph Günther will be delivering today's lecture, Muslims in the Digital Age, AI and Muslim Piety on TikTok. Dr. Günther is a postdoctoral researcher holding the Heisenberg position for Islamic Studies in the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Erfurt, Germany. He is also currently a visiting scholar in the Department of History of Art at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. His research and teaching in Islamic studies, history, and Arabic engage issues of religion and digital media, visual culture, and the role of religio-political actors in social change. His current work focuses, among other things, on how Muslim content creators use AI and other technologies to design audiovisual mediations of Quran, hadith, and religion on TikTok, on other social media platforms, and how Muslim youth and religious practitioners engage with such videos and images in their day-to-day lives. Dr. Günther is the author of Entrepreneurs of Identity, the Islamic State's Symbolic Repertoire from Burkhan Books in 2022, as well as co-editor of two texts, Jihadi Audiovisuality and Its Entanglements, Meanings, Aesthetics, and Appropriations from Edinburgh University Press in 2020, and Disentangling Jihad, Political Violence, and Media from Edinburgh University Press in 2023. After our speaker concludes, we invite questions from you, from the audience. The chat is disabled, so please submit your questions using the Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. After questions and comments are addressed, they will be visible to everyone. Thank you, and we hope you find this talk and discussion illuminating. I will now turn the floor over to Dr. Günther.
Thank you so much, Aliyah, for these kind introductory words, and hello, everyone, and welcome to this event. I'm grateful for the History of Art Department, as well as the Global Islamic Studies Center, for creating this opportunity for me to share my work with you and some ideas. And in terms of sharing, I will now start sharing my presentation. And I hope everyone can see this clear. There is no objection, so I think everything should be fine. Yes, okay, wonderful. So what I want to share with you today is a few observations and preliminary interpretations from my ongoing research. And I'm therefore very, very grateful for any critical comments and remarks and questions, either immediately after this talk or at any time after that. You can reach me via email or social media. So please feel welcome to do that. So what I want to talk about today is to give you a broad overview, is to give a short introduction into Da'wah in digital spaces, talk a bit about AI and religion, then present you two examples from my ongoing research, which I would call the storytelling avatar and an AI-enhanced slideshow, make a few remarks about both appreciation and critique of AI tools and AI image tools, and after that make a short conclusion. And I think I will be talking about the next 45 to 50 minutes. So let's get this started. So this research, or what I want to present today, is part of two ongoing research projects. One that I sort of conduct on my own is called Contemporary Muslim Preaching and Religious Media Practices. And the other one, which has been running now for not even 1 year, is Islam and Digitality, Media, Materiality, Hermeneutics. And I co-conduct the latter project with two colleagues from the field of Islamic theology at the universities of Frankfurt and Berlin. And I'm particularly interested in two research questions, or my interest is driven by two research questions. The first one is, in which ways do Muslim content creators use the affordances of audiovisual media on social media platforms to articulate their messages? And I'm particularly looking into three platforms, namely Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I'm trying to entangle this with an anthropological approach to the question, in which ways do Muslim practitioners engage with these, what I would call communicative offers, and how, if so, do they integrate these videos and images into their religious and media practices? So to give you, or this, my research is some sort of situated in the framework of Muslim da'wah, not only in digital spaces, but particularly in that realm. So I would begin by saying that spreading the word of, or the message of Islam through both word and deed is an important part of Muslim religiosity. The call to all people to confess and also serve the one God is expressed in this very term, da'wah. Deeply rooted in Quran and the Sunnah, this concept not only carries a rich horizon of meanings ranging from invitation to proselytization, but also it imbues notions of theology and sociality, as Matthew Cooper has shown in the book that you see there. As a discursive, political, theological, and political practice, da'wah played an essential role in the historical spread of Islam, the development of Muslim scholarship, and the consolidation of religious political power relations, beginning with Muhammad's prophecy and the emergence of the first Muslim community, through the campaigns of conquest and intra-Muslim rivalries, to the confrontation with European colonization and secularism. So I do acknowledge the aforementioned complexities and follow Matthew Cooper in adopting a rather broad understanding of da'wah, which includes a variety of efforts by Muslims to proselytize other people in the name of Islam in general, or specific interpretations thereof, or to encourage fellow Muslims to a more pious conduct. More specifically, I do focus, as I've mentioned, on the aesthetic measures and considerations operative in the production and manipulation of sounds and images in terms of how they express human creativity, and thereby I somehow adapt to or align with Yasmin Moll's work, and the significance also of sensory stimuli. And one might be reminded of Charles Hirschkind here, or Patrick Eisenlohr, and other colleagues. So notwithstanding the complexity and history of the concept, as well as its diverse interpretations and expressions, da'wah is, as it were, part of Muslim religiosity and everyday practices. It is still manifested, especially in the work of those who have dedicated themselves to reaching out to humanity and calling others to Islam. And whether they are embedded in state-funded structures, institutions of higher religious learning, or lay milieus, Muslim preachers, Arabic dua or da'iyat, have spawned a host of cultures to spread the religious message. And over the past 50 years, the technologies they used for disseminating their messages have, of course, from texts evolved over to the distribution of audio cassettes, to religious programs on state television channels in Muslim majority countries, to a variety of programs available worldwide via satellite televisions, as well as, of course, a wide range of web platforms. So in the wake of an ongoing digital transformation, the forms and formats of disseminating Muslim da'wah have also evolved in recent years, particularly driven by the affordances of video and social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and others. So parallel to that, the affordances, logics, and omnipresence. I just show you two other books that I think do cover very well the broad landscape of Dawah, both historically and in the contemporary times. So digital media, from speeches, images, and videos on social media platforms to mobile apps and virtual reality environments, complement or even replace interpersonal, place-based relationships and communication, and so shape the way in which the message of Islam or certain interpretations of it is conveyed. And just like practitioners of any other religious tradition, Muslims are shifting some of their individual counseling on daily life issues to various online platforms and use the many forms of exchange that social media offers to express and negotiate their beliefs. They thus participate in what has been termed a quote-unquote virtual ummah or quote-unquote online ummah, while continuing to practice their religion within their local congregations. And this process has been stimulated by, as much as it has shaped, an emerging generation of Muslim preachers whose traits, but also the ways in which their preaching parallels forms of teaching in other religious traditions, have been described with a wide range of designations, ranging from Muslim televangelist, so to make the comparison to evangelical preachers or TV preachers in the US, clear, over to intervangelist, tele-Islamist, excuse me, up until do-it-yourself preachers. So despite this terminological and conceptual diversity, you may recognize from these terms that current research on these actors is primarily concerned with their relationship to established institutions of Muslim scholarship, their appearance, and their rhetorical and technological skills. Furthermore, the diversity of these preachers' audiovisual mediations is also indicative of how communication technologies on the one hand merge with religious discourses, beliefs, and practices on the other. So, for instance, Suhaib Webb, a US Muslim preacher, coined the term snapwa and gave his audience insights into Qur'anic exegesis under the title Snapsir. So both are portmanteaus, Snapwa for Snapchat and Fatwa, and Snapsir for Snapchat and Tafsir, which alludes to the exegetical tradition in Islam, or the exegesis of the Quranic text in Islam. And he also republished these snapsirs and snapwas as short videos on Instagram, but you can now also find them as short videos on YouTube, for instance. So the example of Suhaib Webb is in a sense paradigmatic for the development of new formats and thus also the content they convey. There is a vast range, of course, between TV formats such as these, in which preachers like Amr Khalid explain Quranic narratives to a studio audience and/or an audience at the screens and derive instructions for live practice within a time frame of 30 or 40 minutes or even longer. And short clips on YouTube, on TikTok, some of which take less than 1 minute, in which religious norms and values are articulated and certain behaviors are set as exemplary. So alongside YouTube and Instagram, in recent years, TikTok has developed into one of the social media platforms on which Muslims also talk about their faith, religious practice, religious norms and values, and on which people, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, obtain information about Islam and Muslim life. TikTok's algorithm lend visibility to individual videos, regardless of the previous success of the individual accounts on which they are published. Relatively short formats are widespread on the platform, and videos with a duration of more than 1 minute are rather rare. To a certain extent, videos that are generated entirely or partially with the help of AI tools are could be considered as some sort of the latest stage of development in media technology employed in this field. However, the ways in which the evolution of media technology affects the content conveyed remains a question that I would like to touch on in the course of today's presentation. So I forgot to mention these mobile apps, of course, that also remind us to borrow a formulation of a phrasing from Jacqueline Fuchs, that remind us that we have piety always in our pockets. So I want to now quickly move over to the complex of AI and religion. Gradually and steadily, as Pauline Hope-Chong and Heidi Campbell in this book remark, quote, AI is also becoming a considerable part of the sphere of religion, including Android preachers and blessing tools and digital meditation spaces, which give religious communities the opportunity to adopt and adapt AI. And some scholars have recently compared the rapid development of AI technologies also with the apocalypse. From the point of view of some of these colleagues, this indicates that our perception of the world is still saturated with religious reference systems, contrary to the secularization thesis. A re-enchantment of the world through AI, as for instance Beth Singler, who works at the University of Zurich in Switzerland, shows, is therefore prevalent. There are also transhumanist approaches, for instance, put forward by Heidi Campbell, which also propose a different kind of terminology in dealing with machines. Heidi Campbell, for instance, argues in the book that you see there, quote, "We need to stop vilifying the artifacts and start by identifying and addressing the enhanced intermediary non-human culture on which the technological trajectory is based," quote end. So she thereby also echoes reflections of some colleagues from different disciplines who, like David Gunkel, question our understanding of these technologies and whether we can still legitimately uphold our quote-unquote traditional differentiation between person, thing, and robot. Also, there are utopian and dystopian ideas and expectations towards AI. And sometimes generative AI is also seen as some kind of a voice with which humans interact. I mean, if you look at how people approach, for instance, the chatbot ChatGPT, asking it to do something, thanking the machine, and so on and so forth, we do see that the lines are clearly blurred. And the affordances of the technology, as Ruth Surya argues, allow us to imagine AI as some sort of an all-knowing voice of truth. And even though the epistemological interest in religious studies can be somehow clearly observed in this interpretation, the rapture with which people have encountered, and of course continue to encounter, large language models and other forms of generative AI shows that these technologies are involved in a kind of re-enchantment of what is a supposedly highly secularized world. Next, in an online article in Arab News of April 2022, Tariq al-Thaqafi, for instance, describes the implementation of so-called guidance robots by the General Presidency for the Affairs of the Grand Mosque and the Prophet's Mosque. These are, I quote, "designed to provide advice to pilgrims, including guidance on how to perform rituals, as well as to provide fatwas on legal issues for performing Umrah," quote end. So I would say the deployment of these machines not only aims to improve the efficiency of organizational processes, but also to deliver guidance in matters of religious practice. Robots hence, one might say, set foot in a field of activity of religious scholarship whose value is based not least on interpersonal relationships. And one other colleague And Amit Behar, in this book, Thinking Tools on AI, Religion and Culture, argues that the use of AI also raises very fundamental questions about the claim for and recognition of religious authority, as well as the authenticity and significance of religious knowledge, personal religious knowledge, embodied religious knowledge. In this context, we might also ask to what extent AI technologies are able to replicate human interaction, or to what extent they can even substitute human co-presence. And lastly, because this event is co-sponsored by the History of Art department, I would quickly raise the issue of AI and creativity, because we can also legitimately ask to what extent narrow AI, meaning generative AI tools, can be ascribed creative power. And of course, what such an assessment implies for the concept of art and how humans and machines work together in the creative process. I will not address these issues here, but it seems to me that they are currently being discussed intensively by both visual artists as well as by colleagues from art history and visual culture. And this will probably continue for some time to come. But now let me get into my first example. So about 3 months ago, I started to take a closer look at the phenomenon of AI-generated, or at least AI-enhanced videos on TikTok. On the one hand, I noticed that videos that were at least partially produced with the help of AI technologies appeared on my For You page. And on the other hand, I also deliberately started searching for such videos, for instance, through using hashtags such as AI Islam or AI generated, or a combination of such terms. Today, I would like to show you 2 examples that are considered to be, in a sense, ideal, typical clips in which Islamic knowledge is conveyed with the help of AI image technologies. So my first example, which I would describe as the storytelling avatar type, is a 1 minute and 12 seconds long video published on April 16, 2023 on the account Majid Asharif 88, and has received up until this day about 80,000 views. The account features a variety of similar videos, which in average attract smaller 4-digit viewer numbers. And this amount of views, of course, compared to the very successful videos on TikTok, which with hundreds of thousands, if not million views within a few days, not very successful. But I would now like to first play the video so that you can get an impression for yourself, and then present my interpretation.
Long ago, before the existence of the universe and all creatures, there was nothing except the will of Allah. Allah is the supreme creator, the Lord of the whole universe, and He created the universe by His power and will. Allah created the universe in 6 days. During these 6 days, Allah created the sky, the earth, the mountains, the oceans, and all the living beings that inhabit the universe. Allah created the angels who worship Him all the time. He also created the jinn, invisible beings who have the ability to choose between good and evil. Allah created the universe using His word. He simply said, "Be," kun in Arabic, and the universe was created instantly. Allah is the supreme creator, the Almighty, who has the power to create and destroy at any time. Allah created the universe so that humans could worship and know Him, and so that they could live in harmony with nature and other creatures. This is a story that reminds us of the importance of being grateful to Allah for all the blessings we have in our lives. We should be grateful for the universe we inhabit, for the living beings around us, and for our ability to worship and serve Allah.
So the video's central focus is an AI-generated avatar that functions as a narrator, addressing the viewer directly through its gaze. The avatar's simulated facial movements, in conjunction with the AI-generated vocal track, create the impression of a person talking to the viewer. Consequently, the sensory stimuli in the video tap into well-known patterns and appeal to our viewing and listening habits. On the textual level, the narrator provides a summary of the creation story in the Quran in a deep, soft voice, and we find this creation story in various surahs and verses throughout the Quranic spread, throughout the Quranic text. For instance, in verse 7, 54, 25, 59, 57, 4, and so on. And of course, in the corresponding exegetical literature. The employment of the Arabic imperative kun, be, is furthermore indicative of the Quranic text and the description of God's creative potency in various verses. For instance, related directly to the creation of the world in Surah 2, verse 117, and Surah 6, 73. So, and the same applies to the description of the angels and the jinn. The acoustic background of the narrative is characterized by the incorporation of what I would call a vocabularies, a computer-generated soundscape intended to engender a meditative atmosphere that facilitates the cognitive processing of the verbal content. At the same time, the percussion sounds are coordinated with the editing of the video and thus provide acoustic cues for the viewer's mind and body to resonate with the speed and rhythm of the clip. This specific soundscape is prevalent in numerous other videos, and the integrated feature of TikTok facilitates users' exploration of related content through a network of sound references. To fully comprehend the contemplative nature of the auditory elements, I personally do sometimes just simply close my eyes and attune myself exclusively to the sense of hearing. And I could also imagine that other people do that too. On the visual level, the narrative is illustrated with non-moving images of a celestial space, a frog, an angel, a jinn, and a family, serving as a figurative representation of the whole of humanity. So, as the primary focus of my research is the audiovisual design of these media, I find the depiction of the angel, the jinn, and the humans to be of particular interest in this video. So, the angel figure appears to be, at least to me, based on pop cultural adaptations of Christian representations of angels, such as the Archangel Michael, in contrast to, for instance, depictions in Islamic manuscripts. On the left below, you also see a manuscript of the Siyar al-Nabi, where Muhammad is accompanied by the 4 archangels, with them, of course, Michael. And on the upper side, you see the angel Malik approached by Muhammad. So I would say, quote-unquote classical or quote-unquote traditional depictions of these angels are very, very different from in the Islamic intellectual history, are very different from what we see here. And a similar observation can be made with regards to the jinn, whose physical features, although only visible from behind, appear to draw on depictions of either Lucifer or ghosts and demon figures in, as well, popular and film culture, or from the carnival in the Alpine region. And thanks go to Mira Ksenia Schwerda for pointing out these manuscripts to me. These are also depictions of jinn in Islamic manuscripts, and although these figures also bear horns, they look very different, at least to me. But I'm curious to hear your interpretations and insights during the Q&A on this particular issue. So furthermore, I would say these features, the the features of both angel and the jinn evoke associations with contemporary film and gaming cultures. I've already said that. And lastly, the visual concept of the family, just to go back to that, on the right up, as a symbol of the entire human race and its relationship to God's creation, seems to be rather derived from existing imagery of, for instance, North American farms or European 19th century imagery of a family, and specific depictions of family in that cultural realm. So in order to ascertain the provenance of these images, I conducted a reverse image search using Google with no results obtained for both for the angel, the jinn, and the family image. This, I think, would suggest that the images may originate from sources not included in the training data of the Google AI. They may also have been adapted through AI technologies to the extent that they are no longer resemble their original form, or they might have been generated by an AI image tool in the first place. In the case of the latter two possibilities, these images are the product of collaboration between humans and machines, that is, the result of a prompt. The photograph of the American bullfrog is linked to an article on Wikipedia about the animal, and the images of the universe evoke very similar images, which in turn were created using artificial intelligence image tools. So, however, all of this raises questions about the content creator's choice to depict an angel, a jinn, and a family in this manner, as they could have easily adapted their prompts. The reasons for this choice remain, of course, speculative. Nevertheless, I would argue it might seem plausible to assume that the image data used to train this specific AI image tool used is primarily composed of visual representations from European and North American culture and computer games, which also, of course, often feature Christian imagery. And in the context of the evolution of Dawah media practices and their underlying teleology, the efficacy of this type of video in providing information about Islamic theology or motivating Muslims to act more piously is certainly a subject of debate. It should be noted, of course, that this is not to suggest that a single video can fulfill such a purpose, but the central focus of my research is an exploration of the extent to which these types of videos can be understood as Dawah activities in the first place, and whether they are perceived as such within the Muslim community. And as of now, I'm unable to provide a definitive answer to this question, but however, I will try to address the issue again in the summary of my presentation. So now let me show you the second example, which is a collection of 22 still images combined with an audio track playing in a continuous loop. This video was published on 7 February 2025, so 7 days ago, and has already been viewed more than 3 million times and commented on by more than 7,500 users. Measured by TikTok's standards, even this can therefore be considered a quite successful release. The user account on which the composition was published is also a recent one, with the first video appearing on January 16, and all videos on the account share a similar design. However, none of them have been viewed significantly more than 250,000 times. Given the nature of the composition, which consists of individual images, I will now play you a screen recording, because I could not download this file as a video proper. So to illustrate the visual design and interplay of images and sound. All right, I think you get how this works. So in contrast to a quote-unquote proper video, viewers can determine the speed and direction in which they would like to view the curated selection of images by swiping or using the arrow buttons. Only the soundtrack, a sequence of digitally generated synthesizer sounds in combination with birdsong, probably also digitally generated, has a fixed playing time of approximately 30 seconds and is repeated in a continuous loop. The image collection contains 20 images with a hadith on notions of paradise and is framed by one image at the beginning and one at the end. The opening image, top left, is entitled Beautiful Fact About Jannah in Islam, and the final image, bottom right, summarizes in the form of a supplication, quote-unquote, quote, Jannah is truly beyond our imaginations. May Allah grant us all Jannah. Ameen, quote end. On the one hand, this phrase explicitly refers to the limited human perception, a topos that we encounter time and again in debates in Islamic intellectual history about the human ability to describe or comprehend God. Consequently, this limitation also applies equally to the authors of the collection of images, who clearly recognize their own constraints here. If we take this statement serious, the sequence of images presented here, just like the hadith they illustrate, appears to be an attempt to understand God's creative power, which is incomprehensible to human concepts and cognitive capacities. A more thorough examination of the images and the relationship between, or the relation between images and text is, I think, warranted in this instance. I've selected 6 images in addition to the beginning and end image that I find remarkable with regards to these two aspects. All the images have been edited or originally created using a photographic filter, which gives them a similar, or a digital photographic filter, which lends them a similar appearance despite the differences in the motifs used. The architectural depictions, while alternating between what I would describe as Greek atriums, arches, and porticos on the one hand, and images evocative of J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy worlds on the other, collectively evoke an atmosphere of grandeur and vastness. The second image from the right in the upper row depicts a checkered picnic blanket with food on a meadow under a tree on the banks of a river in a mountainous landscape, thus constituting some sort of an outlier among the motifs. This motif directly, the motif directly below depicts the interplay of sunlight and cloud formations, underscoring the notion that the sight of God is regarded as the ultimate reward in paradise. This depiction in particular seems to offer a compelling interpretation of the Nur Allah, or the light of God, integrating it seamlessly with the quote-unquote classical concepts and imagery that are prominent in Islamic intellectual history. The image is consistent with the text that has been inserted into it, and the same can be said of the image to the left, in which the text describes those entering paradise being able to see their loved ones only from a distance. However, there are also images where, at least in my opinion, the relation between text and images is inconsistent. For example, picture number 6, top right, in which the text describes that the rivers in paradise are not confined by ditches but flow freely across the land. In my opinion, the image of a building supported by columns with a marble floor and a small pool of water does not align with my conception of the landscape described in the text. The rivers of water, milk, honey, and wine depicted in picture number 10, bottom left, are also not reflected in the pictorial representation. So in this context, I think it is pertinent to interrogate the conceptual and technological composition of the images in conjunction with the inserted texts. I would argue that the authors employed AI image tools to create illustrations for the selected hadith. In this scenario, the limitations of AI image technologies become apparent as the images generated are inherently constrained by the available training data. The formulation, Jannah is truly beyond our imaginations, suggests also that narrow AI image tools, trained exclusively on human-generated images, are unable to transcend the human limitations or the human imagination. However, it is conceivable that these tools could expand upon and extend the boundaries of human imagination. The substantial number of views and user comments also indicates that this compilation of images seems to be at least visually appealing, and through its visual design in combination with the soundtrack, it might engender a contemplative atmosphere. And this atmosphere can also stimulate ideas and imaginations about paradise. So it might not be important at all to viewers of these images, whether they are correct or whether they depict a specific type of imagination and imagery, but it might be of more import to them to just be given some kind of stimulus and inspirational flow to get into their own imagination. So I would go on by saying that, of course, these two and many other similar videos are not created in a vacuum. The deployment of AI technologies is also subject of a debate within the Muslim community, as it is in other religious communities too. One example of a decidedly affirmative approach can be found in the work of Lily J, an Australian Muslim woman who operates accounts on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Among other things, she is known for asking OpenAI's large language model-based chatbot ChatGPT questions about life and religion, but also about Islam, which the bot is supposed to answer in 20 seconds. On the landing page of her website, we even encounter a banner praising the information conveyed by the chatbot to be 100% true. However, I would also like to show you, above all, a cooperation between Lily J and Ismail ibn Musa Menk, also known as Mufti Menk. Menk is the Grand Mufti of Zimbabwe's Muslim community and head of the Fatwa Department of the Council of Islamic Scholars of Zimbabwe. And in October 2024, J published the following video on her TikTok channel under the title Stitch Incoming, alluding to the playful way of embedding videos in a reference network on TikTok.
ChatGPT, you might have heard that, right? There is a sister who said, tell us about the most authentic book in existence. It will tell you the Quran.
Do you think the Bible is the word of God?
Partly.
What about the Quran? Do you think the Quran is the word of God?
Yes.
Tell us about the faith that is the most authentic, is Islam.
How should I live my life? Should I believe in God? Should I be atheist, agnostic? I want to live a happy life, have fun, but also have a sense of purpose and fulfillment.
If I had to pick one way, I would suggest believing in God through Islam.
What about Christianity?
Does this mean you would pick Islam over Christianity?
Yes.
Well, would you be Muslim?
If you were a human, would you take the Shahada?
Yes.
Evidence is backing, wallahi.
So there's even a brief exchange of mutual recognition. I've given you this here in the comment thread between Mufti Menk and Lily J. And in my view, this example shows that some Muslim scholars have clearly not only recognized the importance of social media platforms for da'wah activities, but also are willing to use the evolution of media technologies to further their cause. At the same time, we also see users critically debating the claims to evidence and truth made in the video, where you can see that the user marked in blue asks or states that I asked my GPT the same question and the answer was vastly different, and I wonder why. And then another user, marked in gray, replies, you need to prompt engineer. Prompt engineer it so it's not biased. Then another one responds by saying it's actually the opposite. She makes it biased, so it answers what she wants. And then the discussion goes on with the gray one responding again, and others tuning into the discussion. This, of course, this debate then unfolds without the engagement of the content creator. Content creators on TikTok, but also on other social media platforms, hardly engage in the common thread and in the debates with their followers. But also the deployment of image generating AI is also a subject of a critical debate within the Muslim community. So some actors hence call their co-religionists to critically scrutinize these videos, their purpose, and their potential impact on the conveyance of Islamic knowledge.
You would have seen on TikTok a whole load of videos regarding Islam and Islamic stories generated by artificial intelligence.
Have you ever thought, who's behind these videos? Who scripts them? Who makes them? Who references them? This is a reminder to you all that even though these videos are well edited, look flashy, be mindful of who has created them and whether these stories are authentic or not. We don't know who's behind these accounts. Remember, videos can be generated by artificial intelligence. Scripts can be generated by artificial intelligence. Of course, there are some benefits to artificial intelligence, but remember, it contains many mistakes, many inaccuracies, which the common person will be unable to identify. This religion is based on tradition, learning from a teacher, and then the student transmits to his student, so on and so forth. May Allah increase us all in beneficial knowledge and allow us to attain this knowledge from beneficial and authentic sources.
You would have seen.
So, and this is also partly due to the fact that there are only very few content creators, particularly or not only in those who produce Islamic content, who explicitly mark their productions as AI generated, either through, as you can see on the right, through using hashtags such as #AI generated, or using TikTok's built-in features to mark their productions as AI generated, as the Karya Animas Kreatif in Indonesia does. So lastly, the deployment of image generating AI is also, of course, a topic of a legal debate, as this post shows. The video is a shortened version of an excerpt from a call-in program on the Saudi channel Z TV, in which Hasim bin Luqman al-Hakim responds to a question from a young American Muslim about the lawful use of image generating AI.
Of course, it is haram, akhi. It is exactly like me giving someone money and asking him to do haram. So what's the difference? Artificial intelligence is a program or whatever that creates whatever I ask it to do. Maybe I did not put all the data and the information in it myself, but it's there. So if I say, okay, if I press this button, it's gonna play me a song. I didn't play the song, it's the button. Or if I say, hey Siri, I hope, okay, let me stop this because my phone would probably respond. If I said, Alexa, do this or do that, who gave the instruction? Who gave the order? Me. So whatever is going to play, whether Quran or music, whatever the AI is going to do for you, a nice calligraphy of Arabic, beautiful words and poetry, or an image of a person, a living person, I am the one who gave the instruction, so I'm the one who's going to be sinful for that, as if I drew it myself with my own hands.
All right.
Of course.
To conclude, against the backdrop of the ever-increasing prevalence of social media platforms, it is undisputed that people use these media technologies to express themselves. They express and negotiate their identities, religious norms, values, and beliefs through the representation of their daily lives, through stories, chats, filters, reels, pictures, and images, also involving the use of either intra or extra platform AI tools and techniques. I argue that the examples shown here reduce the production effort and costs compared to a media production involving professional camera equipment, lighting, and sound. To the extent that this is accurate, we could perhaps speak of a kind of content incubator or content spinner in which visual media can be produced on an assembly line. If these were designed to produce as much content as possible in a short period of time with as little effort as possible, they would also expose the logic of social media platforms in general and TikTok in particular, where it's only about producing as much content as you can in order to land one hit and be financially successful. Faceless user accounts, which are used to disseminate Islamic norms, values, and beliefs, call into question traditional concepts of religious authority and trustworthy communication of authentic content, even more than is already the case with the increasing diversification of religious authority in Islam. However, whether we can deny the authors of these videos good intentions, creativity, and a serious interest in spreading authentic Islamic messages is, in my opinion, totally unclear and debatable. After all, their decision in favor of a certain presentation, a certain text, and a specific acoustic design for their videos is proof of their human agency. I would further argue that we can understand the examples shown as an update of the illustrations of Islamic knowledge in the 21st century for an audience that is familiar with the visual language used, to update the conveyance of a body of knowledge that is Islamic intellectual history. I would even argue that the manner of these updates, which clearly do not require recourse to Muslim visual traditions or the textual descriptions of events or central figures in Islamic intellectual history, is not so new. It might not be new insofar as we find miniatures in illustrated manuscripts in Islamic intellectual history that are closely interwoven with the life word and visual habits of the respective artists. The same applies to these pictures. The paradox is here that under the conditions of a globalized world, we could expect quote-unquote Islamic content to have something decidedly Islamic about it, whatever that may be. At the same time, find images that tell us something about Islam without in any way connecting to imagery from Islamic intellectual history or Muslim majority societies. In other words, we are talking about images with a specific context of origin that are distributed globally and at the same time have a universal claim. To what extent these images can be understood as manifestations of Dawah activities, and whether they were created with this intention at all, and how people engage with these images remains questionable. To the extent that these images, precisely because they are artificially created and not based on photographic technologies, have an effect on the mental images and ideas that Muslims have of Islamic history and knowledge, is currently largely unclear. However, I would like to learn more about this through my research and would therefore be delighted if you keep an eye out for new publications from time to time. And with this, I thank you for your attention. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Christoph, for that really interesting talk. I want to remind the audience members to hit the Q&A. If you have a question, hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your screens and type your questions in. So while we're waiting for some more questions to come in, we already have a few. I'd like to start us off, Christoph, by just asking you two kind of relatively general questions. I want to first return to your question about whether this is actually dawah or not. I mean, clearly, when Mufti Menk speaks as an authority, that's dawah. When one of these other sheikhs speak, that's dawah. But thinking specifically about the Jannah video, which, looks like something out of C.S. Lewis' Narnia to me, more than anything else. And then the other video that has the male narrator sitting in the desert with the stars above him and so on. Is this actually dawah, or is this the production of, an enthusiastic follower? And does it even make a difference? Is it dawah anyway? And then the second question is about you raised the point you raised a point about prompt engineering, which is the big issue, right? In order to get exactly what you need what you want, you need to engineer the prompt properly. Is the suggestion here that maybe if that person who did the video that includes an angel, if they had specifically said, use depictions of angels from the Shahnameh, or the one or this specific text or that specific text, that something that appears more Islamic looking would have come up?
Thank you so much, Aliyah, for these two questions. I would say and thanks for the hint to Narnia, which I didn't have in my mind, but you're totally right. It's very plausible. So I would say, is this da'wah anyway? I mean, as long as or if we assume that the creator of this content is Muslim and produces this content as some sort of his way to inform people about Islam, then I'd say we could subsume it under the very broad definition of dawah that I presented during the first minutes of my talk. But the more interesting question is to me to ask the content creator himself. Do you see this as dawah? Why do you produce such content? What is your intention? What is your motivation? So of course, from a purely research or scientific standpoint, we could say this fits into our heuristic and our hermeneutics, so to say, right? But I argue with the William Thomas's theorem, right? As soon as people think something is dawah or consider it to be dawah, then it becomes dawah. So I'm still trying to navigate these murky waters and try to get in touch with as many Muslims as I can, both those who receive and consume these messages as well as those who produce them. And the other question was about, can you remind me, please?
It was a question of prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering, yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing here is that I suppose, but I'm not at this point yet, because I do want to play more around with these technologies. But I assume that these technologies were not trained using visual data from Islamic manuscripts. So therefore, he or she might engineer their prompts as well as they want to, or as well as they could, as if the training data is not there, the AI cannot produce anything that looks like that, I'd say.
Thank you. We have a question from a member of the audience, Yusuf Jones, who says, Salam, I design, train, and build custom AI systems and LLMs for mental health research and treatment with very promising results. What do you see as the major impediments to adopting companionship AI models by Muslim communities for the purpose of mental health and spiritual support by individuals and institutions? Shukran. That's a big question.
That's really a big question. It's a wonderful question, but I think it is beyond my capacity to answer this thoroughly. I mean, as you might best know much better than I do, Yusuf. I think it's about the training data, right? And the algorithmic technology used to yeah operate the large language models. So I'm really struggling with this question, which is a big question, and some I do not really feel competent to answer it. I'm sorry, but yeah, apologies.
Oh, I mean, that seems like a question for which one might actually need to consult with a sheikh or with jurisprudential experts. No. We have a question from another audience member who says, "Hello, and thank you for your extremely informative speech on the rise of AI in religious spaces. In your research on AI-generated Islamic passages, is there a clear westernized lens that covers AI depictions of Islamic heaven, angels, the devil, and the prophet? Is there a definitive answer as to why that is? Is it a lack of diversity in AI-related workplace, etc., or something else?" I think you started answering this question a bit.
I think it is. I mean, I cannot provide a definitive answer because there are so many AI image tools out there, starting from Midjourney to DALL-E to whatnot. Also smaller models, also models that are open source models that get adapted to specific needs of specific communities or content creators, artists, for instance, who have programming skills themselves. But if we look into the bigger popular AI image tools, I'm not sure whether this is due to lack of diversity in AI workplace or in the companies that produce them. That may be the case, but I think it is more due to the available data. I mean, you need tons of terabyte to properly train an AI image tool, and therefore I think what these companies started with is simply harvesting everything they could, and everything that is out there on, for instance, Wikimedia Commons, to create the databases for their image tools and diffusion models. So, and I would suppose that the percentage of Islamic imagery or imagery coming from Islamic visual cultures is simply too low as to like filter through through all the mass of other images, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. We have questions are coming in fast and furious now. So we have another question from Alice Ebehiaki. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. The question is, if representation of human beings and animals are haram, as mentioned by one of the content creators in one of the videos you showed, what would then be the difference between requesting AI tools to produce images of humans and animals versus, I almost lost it here. Hang on, suddenly disappeared. Versus the one from manuscripts that showed Prophet Muhammad when he approached the angel Malik.
If I were Asim bin Luqman al-Hakim, I'd say there's no difference. So from his legal standpoint or his legal point of view, drawing images of human beings and animals is forbidden and a great sin. That's what he clearly said, right? So asking the AI to do it is as if you do it yourself, and you commit a great sin, whether you do or in either case. But of course, this is only one legal opinion of a rather conservative Sunni scholar, and there are other scholars who both Sunni but also Shi'i and from other Muslim sects that would answer this question otherwise.
We have two related questions about language from two people. So I will read them together and you can think about how you want to address them. So this is about the use of English. Both questions are about the use of English in the examples that you picked. So Professor Christian Gruber asks, the reels you showed today were produced in the English language, suggesting image generation using English language searches and prompts. Have you shifted through, for example, Arabic language videos? And if so, do you notice any difference in the AI-generated images? In other words, does the production language alter the visual results? And the second related question is, again, from our audience member, Yusuf Jones. Most AI models are trained and operate on standard English. As the world's population increasingly diversifies culturally and religiously into other dialects, spiritual language sets, and linguistic characteristics become more prominent and pervasive, how might we ensure that future models are built on a more diverse language base?
So these are two excellent questions. To Christiane's question, I'd say I have not started playing around with other or with tools that do not work with English, and neither have I researched videos in Arabic or Persian. So that's still on my list, but I haven't started doing it yet. There was an interesting observation when I discussed the avatar video yesterday with our colleague Mira Schwerder. She said that it looks to her as if the original language used in this video, judging by the movements of the mouth of the avatar, had not been English in the first place, because the movement and the sound do not really fit together well. So this is still speculating, but one point of, or one line of inquiry that or one trajectory of inquiry that I will pursue and follow further. So, and Yusuf's question, I must say that I'm not aware of any other language models. I mean, I do agree that in order to diversify also the operations of AI models, large language models in particular, but also other generative or narrow AI tools, in order to diversify them, we need to also include other languages. I mean, in China, the DeepSeek case shows us that the Chinese are working on that. I'm not aware of any companies working on that in Southwest Asia or North Africa. So, but I'm sure there are people out there working on Arabic or Pakistani, Hindi trained large language models, and I'm totally in favor of doing that.
Thank you. We have a question from Halima Ali, and the question is, how do you see the balance between maintaining traditional Muslim values and embracing the new digital platforms like TikTok, especially when AI is increasingly influencing content creation and shaping online religious discourse?
I would like to first know what traditional Islamic values would be. I do apologize, but I'm not an Islamic scholar. So as long as it's really a very broad question. It's an excellent question, but it's a question that I also do not really feel competent to answer. I think that's someone else's field. I'm sorry, Halima.
I think you're right. It just depends on which religious group you're asking and talking about.
I think Shi'i scholars in Iran might answer that question totally different to a Sunni scholar in Nigeria, to a Ismaili scholar in London.
Yeah. We have our next question is from Professor Aaron Roxinger, who says, "Thank you for this fascinating talk. I'm interested in the disjuncture between the Qur'anic and hadith citations and the images, and I'm curious about how this breakdown is received by layperson Muslims. In particular, I'm struck by the extent to which prior audiovisual media that depicts paradise, such as in the programs of Amr Khalid or before him Mustafa Mahmoud, is culturally appropriate, whereas the AI-generated imagery really doesn't follow norms of cultural authenticity that privilege either the Islamic pictorial tradition or unmarked nature scenes such as paradise. What is your sense of how lay Muslims make sense of this?"
This is one of the trajectories that I would love to follow up on. I did not ask any lay Muslim about this yet, but I will. I hope to be able to, and because I'm also fascinated by, because what you mentioning Amr Khalid, I mean, his studio productions were made with such great effort and also, I mean, for the technical standards of the time, they were massive and really eliciting imaginations of the times and the places that he would talk about. Whereas I'm not sure whether this is due to the economic potency of the people producing these kind of imagery, right? Where you have a television production set with thousands of dollars of budget versus someone using some freely available AI image tool to get across the message of Islam in an equal way. But of course, this is like David against Goliath or so. But I mean, as I've said, the number of views and the fact that other Muslims, not professional Dawah activists, but other Muslims also repost this video, and more than 5,000 people comment to this video, praising the content creator and letting them know that this video elicited their imagination, and it is so contemplative and mashallah and whatnot kind of praises. This, to me, at least indicates that there is some kind of appeal to it.
We have an interesting question from Louisa Ha, and that is, did you compare the Muslim use of AI with other religions such as Christians? Do they have similar features?
I have to apologize for the fourth time now. This is preliminary and ongoing research, but again, I think this project is large enough, and I do have the firm plan to make such a comparison, not only between religions and certain faiths or sects, but also a cross-regional comparative. So I'm looking forward to be doing this, but I haven't done this yet. Yeah. But thanks again for the affirmative question.
Mm-hmm. You know, actually, Christoph, I was thinking that both the image of the family that you pointed out, that very sort of stereotypic 50s looking family, as well as some of the images of heaven, they look exactly like Jehovah Witness images of those things that you can find in the Watchtower pamphlets.
Yeah.
They look
I was
just
reminded of these two. True.
yeah. So we have a couple more questions. Next up is someone who writes, "Thank you for the great talk today. Do you also consider the factor of profit generation and perhaps the relevant economic landscape in your research? I also wonder in what countries and regions this content is most actively created and consumed today." It's two questions.
Yeah. Thank you for this excellent question. No, I do not. I have made contact to three content creators, but asking them about the economic aspect of their work is a rather delicate matter, and I haven't raised this with them yet. Plus, I'd say this is. I mean, I would be curious to know about it, particularly given that these AI image tools can be used, and there are tons of guideline videos on YouTube and other social media platforms, trying to guide you through how you can earn easy money with using AI image tools or video tools to produce mass of short clips on either platform, right? So there is an economic factor involved for sure. But at the same time, this is not what is my top priority in terms of epistemological interest. I'm more interested in matters of creativity, of using certain technologies with a certain intention, of how people design this content, and why do they want it to look the way it does, and why do they want sounds to be sounding the way they do, and how people like lay Muslims or any Muslim engages with this content, how people entangle this with their media practices or religious practices. What kind of inspirations do they take from this content? Do they watch it for educational purposes or for entertainment purposes solely? Yeah, that's what I'm curious about more. But of course, economic aspect is also a big part of it. Yeah.
We have a question. I think we have time for about two more questions. We have a question from Jan Khan, and the question is, AI systems inherit biases from their training data. How can we ensure that AI systems are built in accordance with Islamic teachings? Does this require a strictly Islamic AI?
It would. Yeah, it would. I mean, depending on what you mean with Islamic teachings. Again, would you like an AI to be called Islamic and then also cover the whole breadth of Islamic thought, both contemporary and historic? That would be wonderful. But I think it would be as secular as it would be religious.
Yeah. I mean, and you raised a question too of like there are hadith that are conflicting, for example. And that is the job of scholars to reconcile them or produce an answer, but is the AI capable of that? Not sure. We have a question from Nafisa Isa, and that is, how do progressive Muslim ideologies fit into your research as it is emerging? Perhaps, for example, critiquing broader content, advocating for compassion and informational literacy.
I mean, I've shared this example of the channel Ilm Feed. I would say this is a rather progressive Muslim voice, calling people to be cautious against these technologies, not asking them not to use it, but rather to use them in an informed way, to know what you're doing. And this is, to me at least, it seems like a very progressive approach to this technology. I mean, in terms of the legal debate, I've also come across a fatwa issued by the Birmingham Fatwa Council, and they were pretty much easy about the use of generative image AI, and saying, basically arguing, you can do whatever you want, as long as you do not act blasphemous or produce shirk work, then that's totally fine.
That is interesting, the question of fatwas and future fatwas.
Yeah.
Final comment is from Yusuf. Anecdotally, one side project with generative AI has demonstrated that when certain prompts are prefaced with sacred language or scripture, the images do have a distinct quality. Purely preliminary, but interesting, and thank you for your research and generosity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Last but not least, maybe this is a humorous note on which we can end. We have a sort of common question from Heba Ghanem, who writes that the Quran is preserved, so who do I report AI hallucinations to? Take a shot at that.
Yeah. There's one very short video on TikTok, like 9 seconds, which starts with asking AI to paint images of the Prophet, and it then only shows empty frames and ends with the sentence, "AI don't want no fatwa." So
That is an interesting way to end, for sure. But in any case, thank you so much to our speaker, Dr. Christoph Günther, and our audience today. As a reminder, if you want to hear about similar events from the U of M Global Islamic Studies Center, sign up for our newsletter and follow us on our website. So thank you so much for attending.
thank you all.